Well, friends, as we ease into the month of August, we're going to take a peek back into the month of July to see what Lubbock's real estate market did. It was an interesting month, so we'll jump right into the data and help you see what you need to know. So, we're going to, of course, cover the market overview, buyer activity, listing inventory, and interest rates. So, let's talk about the market overview first. One of the interesting things is normally once you get past the month of May in our market, you start seeing the buyer activity just gradually trend down each month into the end of the year. However, the month of July actually had more homes go under contract than June of this year or July of last year. We saw an uptick in buyer activity despite interest rates being a little bit more elevated. We'll talk more about that with some breaking news, so be sure to stay around for that. As you look at closings, almost even for the month over compared to July of last year. And then the median sold price and average sold price so far year to date are both up about 3%, despite inventory being elevated. We'll talk more about that in a moment as well. Average days on market. Full disclosure, I'm still not convinced that our new MLS provider has all the data worked out yet. Lubbock Association of Realtors made a policy change earlier in the year to count the days on market from list date to under contract date. That's a policy I advocated for years ago, but did not get traction on that request. And so now they have finally are changing it from list to under contract date rather than list to close date like it's been since the beginning of time, as far as I know. So I do believe, based on the data that I can find, that the average days on market from list date to close date is somewhere in the 75 to 80 day range, which simply means that it's taking most homes somewhere between 40 to 45 days to go under contract. And with average closing time of 30 days, puts you in that 75 to 80 day range. I really do believe, based on my 20 years of experience and looking at the data that I can find, that's probably where we're at right now. But nonetheless, it is curious that our number of home sales in Lubbock County is up so far year to date, as well as the average sales price, although our inventory is at the highest levels we've seen in some time, and we'll get into that in a moment. Now, under contract activity, now, as we mentioned a minute ago, July was the third highest month so far in 2024 for homes going under contract. Of course, this year, April has been the peak month for the number of homes going under contract. Keep in mind, 2024 and 2023, March was the peak month for both those years. So we're moving finally back to a more historical norm in April or May being the peak month for number of homes going under contract. Of course, May was slightly down from April, and then June dropped more, but July popped back up. So despite rates being up there, some buyers have stayed engaged in the market overall. Now, listing inventory, as I mentioned, has continued to push up. In fact, a couple of weeks ago, we broke the 1,700 count for the Lubbock County active listing inventory for the first time since around 2010. And we were there for just a day or two and then eased back into the upper 1600s right the last week or so, been in the 1660, 1670 range. Still the highest levels we've seen since around 2010, which makes it all the more curious that we're seeing the average number of home sales up so far this year, as well as average price. Now, in full disclosure on the average sales price, I do believe that's not indicative of the concessions buyers overall are giving. They're getting closer to the asking price, but what we're seeing in our business personally, sellers on average are giving up quite a bit in seller concessions to get their homes sold, and that could look at different ways of closing cost help, different concessions towards rate buy downs, that type of thing. As we look at mortgage interest rates, so through the month of July, early part of the month, we saw the rates retreat just slightly for about a week or so, and then they pushed back up to where they pretty much have hovered all year, which is in that 6.75 range. However, as of Monday this week, one of the interesting things, based on the weaker than expected jobs data that came out Friday, rates actually dropped slightly starting this week. So as we began Monday, several local lenders are posting 30-year conventional rates around 6 3/8, where they've been around 6.5 or a little bit higher for the past few weeks. And then FHA rates right around 6% or a little bit below that. So it'll be interesting to see what the rates hold as we go further in the month. Of course, the Fed held the prime rate steady last week. A few were hoping for a rate cut, although many are still expecting 1 to 2 later this year. Time will tell. The mortgage rates have not gone as many have forecasted over the last couple of years. Jobs and economic data keeps coming in too mixed. It keeps going back and forth. So we'll see what happens. But as for now, we have seen just a little bit of relief to begin the week, and we'll see if the rates hold down or even push down a little further as we continue forward into the year. With all this mixed data, you may have some questions, whether you just have general questions about the market, whether you have questions about your home specifically, even though you may not be considering a move, but you may just be curious, or you may know someone who has questions on their own. As always, we're here for you. Just reach back to us, message us. We're happy to help yourself or anyone that you know that may have questions that they just want a no pressure consultation to just learn more about the market and see what their options are. So, as always, feel free to reach back to us and message us. We're happy to take care of you. And as always, we thank you for watching, and we'll talk to you soon.